for illumined life to be birthed into form. I am the truth. I am the light. Illumined, beloved divine.
So hello there everyone, and welcome. Welcome into shared space with me here today, and we see each other much sooner than expected, as usually the ways of spirit are completely unpredictable, and I couldn't wait until I finally move one day soon, because it was just so much that I wanted to share with you through this knowing of Illumined union and this journey of divine union of illumined counterparts and earthly counterparts, and all that I've been gathering along this way as I've been journeying through my own ascension and the ascension of so many souls that is in preparation, as you know, in the workings of the divine. And in the last few months, and specifically in the past few weeks, I was undergoing this very intense journey. It was almost like how it was shown to me, the final battle of darkness and light through my own physical illumination of the inner child, in which I know I talk about as this journey of Illumined union. And it was just so deeply intense and difficult that I've been going through massive pains in my body, and my family of light has told me that these last 5% of transgression energies, the dark will work very hard to maintain and to persevere within our own embodiment through it. And there was also other things that basically got me further and further into this evolution of love. But today, no matter what the hardships were and how difficult it was for me to persevere, I've lost a lot of life force for that. I've actually given all that I've had to this process. Currently, I find myself in a deep void in which my body needs a lot of self-care and nurture, because it was a very difficult battle. It was a battle. And I know that a lot of people who are not in this path do not understand, and will never understand this until maybe one day in their own evolutionary journey they would have to go through something similar, or perhaps they might not, because as you know, we're all progressing through this evolution of spirit that is so unpredictable. And it was interesting for me to note, just recently we were reading the words of Sri Aurobindo again, and he had so much wisdom to share at his time, and talking about the greatness and the love of Divine Mother, and how she basically can offer us everything if we have this understanding what her benevolent love of creation, the love of life is. And he was talking about that eventually every soul will return home to this state of inner divinehood and inner God self, the union of polarity within and the illumination of our counterparts. And I know that as well. However, none of us knows how this will play out. And he also said that it's having to do with this evolutionary journey of souls, but it's not the evolutionary spiral through which the souls were growing so far. And that is why I want to take you through my own illumined home experience journey, and what it means for me, and how I've been living this life, and how I've been integrating this polarity into this world of duality, and remembering more and more, it means that our soul is not fully awake to the mission of the soul until we remember our pre-record journey. It's like we're needing to remember these galactic aspects of ourselves. We're needing to trace the journey of ourselves back home. And I was quite successful in doing that in the year 2019. And it was in that summer that I channeled everything about the cosmic Christ journey. And remember, back then I talked about how I'll finally create this as a course and bring that deliverance, that liberation knowledge to all of us. I'm going to share it with all of you. But somehow, if you remember, that fall of that same year, 2019, I was hijacked. And I had to go through 2 years almost of this battling through the transgression energies that were seated along this illumined seed union within my body. And in a way, I believe, because it's all how it needs to happen and play out, that with this integration, our own Illumined Council team had much more ability and potence of achieving what we desired than if we would have chosen to ascend my human counterpart back then, because I was very close to illumination back then. I simply remember myself being in that state of finally anchoring the cosmic pulsar of light, the galactic pulsar of light, which is an illumined design. It's an organic inner light being intelligence. It's not an outside technology through which many evolutionary stages of different civilizations were also growing, but it's an illumined creatrix design that composes of divine cosmic Christ Trinity, which I will one day explain in the Cosmic Christ course, and this will definitely be my legacy before I leave this planet. So this is something that was new, that hasn't yet been seeded before. So in today's video, I want to take you through the journey of that remembrance. I want to give you a little bit of the niggle that might inspire something or awaken a memory code, unlock something within your own soul, because there's a lot of soul beings right now on this planet that are still wandering around, and it's just been difficult for them because there was it's constantly this tug war between what their soul wants and what the ego wants. And there's a push and pull dynamics. And I'll explain through my own Illumined Union journey of what I was shown and what I witnessed through my own human experience in this realm, and kind of like what my own family of light showed me about the progression of these souls and what are the next steps to take. So I want to start somewhere beautiful. So what happened for me a few weeks ago, I've actually received this beautiful letter from someone, from a divine companion. And she actually wrote to me about the dream that she had about me. And this was last winter, about a year ago. And if you remember, that was a time when I had to go through a very, very dark period in my life. The first time in which I unveiled these transgression energies, what they are, and how to basically start moving them through my body. And if you remember, there was a whole year and a half afterwards journey of getting these electric charges that were seeded into me for years and years, and dispensating them out of my body and guiding them out of my body. If you remember, in the spring and summer of 2020, which was last year, I wasn't even able to walk. And moving into this year, after even more difficult winter, which was a very dark winter this year, which I didn't expect, to be honest, but it was even harder because they were showing me that the tinier the percentages of these transgression energies still left in the body means that they're more difficult to work with. It's almost like they're more rooted, so it's going to be difficult or more intense to work with this elevation and resurrection process. So it was a very intense process, and I've experienced so much cleansing and going through witnessing these dark cycles of what these stagnant energies are, because I had to sometimes enter and jump into very, very low frequencies of life, in which when you enter those expressions of essence of darkness, you will see that the creation of darkness created certain aspects that are so devoid of life that you know them, and I've recognized them as pure stagnation, because the opposite of life is not death, it's stagnation. And when you enter these energies and how they were created, it's so full of sadness, which only an illumined heart, an illumined being, and an illumined presence can work through. Because even when you're swimming through those energies, you're not absorbed by them. They cannot take over you, because you have so much love of that purity within you that you simply always find your way out. And this is how my journey looked like for the past 2 years. Overall, it was 3 years to be more specific, but the last 2 years were the most difficult and intense years that have basically sucked me dry for my life. And as you know, I've lost the abilities of my human body that I've had before, which are my hyperactivity and tendency to climb mountains and do lots of physical workout and things like that, which now I'm no longer able to do in that same matter. But at the same time, I've gained mastery over transgression and over darkness in a way that I haven't seen anyone accomplish yet. This has been simply a journey of such advanced integration. And someone had to do it, and simply I was that one. And when I received that letter from that individual, in that letter, she actually acknowledged me through a very simple presence, and it came to her through a dream. And I think it was all divinely intended and guided that I did not receive that letter last year, because I was in such a poor condition. But it came almost a year later. And in that letter, a being shared with me how they saw in the dream, when they were overlooking this ocean of different types of birds, they saw a flock, a group of swans. There were these swan beings, and they were all together. They were a soul family, a soul tribe belonging together. And I was one of these swans. However, in that interpretation, she described that I was simply a swan that was different than the rest of them, which meant that my left spiritual wing, through her perception, was adorned with all these beautiful ethereal and earthly crystals, diamonds, pearls, rainbow of all colors. And she said, I basically, through that vision, achieved such advancement and mastery of understanding that other swans did not yet experience. And because of that, there was still sadness in me. I was, because of that, very sad. And so when she saw my right earthly wing, it felt like I could no longer fly because of that sadness. And she simply gave me a message that this was a time to tend to the earthly wing and that I will fly again. But for me, when I looked into what was shared with me, there was an even deeper message. It was a message of a being who, once you have everything, but it's you find yourself alone in that. The desire of these beings is to continue to move that essence further. You want to share that with, because remember, everything is always as above, so below. And all these advanced beings and illumined light beings, we have a desire to continually call out the members of our flock, so to say, members of our light family. And we're wanting to spread what was already integrated as a totality of the whole. That's how I see things. And we're needing to share that with the rest of the group, because remember that saying, as above, so below, it applies the same way in every realm. Happiness is only real when shared. So we know happiness on earth is a different quality, is a different expression than perhaps in high realms. But since the dawn of my awakening here, I was shown that the divine union is simply an integration of these polar opposites, the earthly counterparts, and those beings who've been experiencing life in such a manner, and those aspects who were creating illumined aspects of ourselves. So after I've gone through a very deep, rapid, accelerated stage in the last few weeks, I started doing once again the galactic pulsar. And in one of my pulsar experiences, I was pulsating so super fast. I was spinning, and it was the movement of this discharge of these cosmic light particles, which are photonic in nature. They're like liquid plasmic light. And in that, your body acts as a vessel, as an interface between your illumined light body and your earthly physical body vessel. So in that transcription, the energy and that transmission travels in both ways. So as I'm receiving, at the same time I'm also emitting. I'm telling my light illumined team what is happening here on earth and how can we handle this better, and what are some of the things that can be done to call out, to bring aspects of the soul more into divine union. This is not just about divine masculine and divine feminine polarity expressions to come into union, as in many people talk about this, the twin soul, the twin flame journey, right, and path integration. This is coming into wholeness as groups of beings, as soul counterparts, as group family members. And I will talk more about this today in this video. And I also do Illumined Union readings on my Patreon page, as if you know. So I'll cover that aspect of divine marriage integration through masculine and feminine path polarities more there, okay? So when I did that pulsar, it was such a rapid exchange. It was so much that afterwards I was left speechless. I was in awe. And that same day I went out, and suddenly I started receiving these visions. And I saw this vision how what my path was and how I was designed, how I was created myself. And I saw like this vision of there being this first split through which there are certain soul aspects of the family members or the clan, the clusters, that wanted to experience life in density. They wanted to, flow through these lesser realms of creation, right? These realms where souls can experience themselves more encumbered, and the souls would gather these experiences. The other polarity expression was, and I was part of these beings we were focused and intended on creating illumined counterparts, illumined aspects of ourselves. And I don't want to cover this today because then the video would be hours long, but just in a nutshell, there is a divine trinity that we've been creating, and this is the cosmic Christ archetype in this current system in our galaxy, which functions through the Pleiadian illumined counterpart aspect, the Syrian illumined aspect, which are high council aspects, of course, and the Illumined Arcturian aspects. These are not physical beings. We're not talking about ETs here. We're not talking about being from there, as in spaces in the regions of our universe, within our galaxy, but the aspects of those traits of essences that have been in each of those particular regions or realms have been brought to their fullness of expression. So in the Pleiadian realm, we have this tantric master expression. There's lots of that joy, that childlike nature, that playfulness, which was completely brought into illumination in that realm. Then in the Sirius, we have that song, and we have working through the sound, and in the Arcturus, we have advanced illumined light being technology or intelligence, such as the pulsar. And so when this trine was complete, those of us who were focused on creating our illumined aspects, and we've ascended from all these aspects, we were able to brought all these, what people talk about, these densities as 5D, 60, and 7D, we're able to bring them also to the level known as the 9th density polarity. So a while back, and when I was doing lots of this penetrating this breakthrough work through the darkness and its transgression, darkness actually works for the light. We are not always aware of that, but it pushes us forward to integrate aspects of ourselves that are still not fully advanced, and this is how we advance. And that is why beings who are most advanced in this universe are beings actually who work through the dark. They don't avoid the dark. They don't just simply acknowledge that the dark is and exists, but they work through it and with it. These are beings who work with divine union every single step of the way. And for us, love is the only way through which we actually create our work of mastery and integration. Nothing else. There's no achievement. There's no mastery over, whatever we're going to talk about here. It's simply an element of profound, pure, immaculate love. And so when we were able to create the trine, when we created these illumined aspects on all these levels, we were able to create what is called the gateway for ascension. And this is where we are now. So years back, it was, I think in 2018 towards 2019, I received this guidance that we're creating this golden gate archway for ascension. And this is what our Lumen team is doing. And a part of me that came to Earth because I needed to be the vessel. They needed me to have these human experiences, to be in a way a scout for, calling out these aspects, still figuring out what binds them to Earth, what keeps them locked in the matrix, why these soul aspects have become so encumbered in this situational framework, why it's so difficult for them to not get out of this human condition, because we can't get out of things. We'll never get out of something. Our life is basically not a situation we're in. It is a creation of something we create ourselves. And so at a certain point, these aspects have become stuck. And because of this inability to move forward, many of these souls actually became motionless. They stopped moving. They just kept recreating the same lifetimes over and over again. And a lot of people, you might even have someone watching this video now and they might not acknowledge this within their life. They think everything's fine. But in truth, I've seen this as the tug of war when they're being pulled equally by the dark and the light. And a lot of these souls are actually undecided. They're indecisive. So they would have conditions or circumstances in their life, and each would represent a battle camp, like there's a certain circumstance in their life that vies for the dark, and there's something in their life that keeps pulling towards the light. And the reason why they can't make a choice is because they're undecided. Because they're still not fully here and not fully there, and they just keep on that status quo, and it's this constant spinning. So when I come into content and interaction with these souls, I feel that I'm being pulled into this spinning wheel that's like never moving. It's never moving forward. And it's a very complex matter. So when I was shown this vision of our galactic family as one, I was also shown for specific people I know that they're part of these family members, and how we first divided. And for some of them, I could feel that they can only connect with me through a specific essence, And when they connect with that essence, they are devoid of feeling what else is there, all of it, all of life. And they become in a way stuck and limited and seeing only that. But in a way, that aspect, that counterpart that's also the home within themselves, is constantly calling them out to come home, to return home. And as a person, because they still have so much veils around them and so much of that which keeps them stuck on earth, they can't seem to move forward. And so I've received a lot of information, the reason why we had to come and scout them out. And, one of these beings was also my mother, and she was very successful in her ascension. So she's chosen it, and she's worked very hard throughout the years. But there's also souls who are lazy or who are stubborn. A lot of them carry a tremendous amount of pride. Sometimes a tremendous amount of fear, hiding behind a mask of their circumstances, and it's very difficult. And we, even though as illumined beings, we have a very limited scope of how much we can do personally, one-to-one with these beings, especially if their human personality think there's nothing out there, there's nothing for them to do, they're just not choosing it. And so the only thing we were able to do, as I was shown, is plant these seeds. Today I've seen something how I was able to insert a white spiral through someone's navel, and that white spiral went into them. It's going to continuously ripple out. It's going to call them out, and it's also going to call them out on everything that's still dark and distorted. Because the only thing that is real in this life, you have to know, is pure immaculate love. And that love creates with the element we know as illumined light. On earth, when there's the eons of this distortion through matrix and hijacking and inception, where we get all these thoughts that are not even our own, these soul beings, and through their personalities, they weren't able to ascend because the personality was still so stuck, right? And they kept recreating the same circumstances in which they felt an amount of loneliness. They started feeling isolated, alone in those aspects, so they kept calling us out for assistance as well. So there was longing present in both of our directions. We, as those beings who were focused on creating illumined counterparts, we were longing for those soul family members to return home, and they were also longing for their higher counterparts. So this is what, for me, Illumined Union truly means, that all these counterparts one day in this creatrix design come together and be one again. Because in the beginning I was shown we were all one family and we loved each other very much. And as the souls were developing through the first few steps, they were very, what's the word to use here, polyamorous. And polyamory is a state in which many partners and counterparts were explored, because the souls were still learning to match their energies and enmash them and imbue them within someone else, and they were trying out different coupling formations. But those of us who went on and we were creating these illumined counterparts of ours. We were doing illumined aspects from which we could ascend, because we needed to build that divine trine in this galaxy. That's what we were focused on, and we knew love no longer is polyamorous. For us, love was pure devotion, and this is where it comes in, the story of Aurea and Aurea, and I'll also show more about today, and their love, which is pure devotion to one another and their service to creation, and how much they love life. I cannot explain this love to you, but I wrote something, my memory of home and remembering my mission in totality, and I'll share it with you as well, so you can just feel a little bit of that in your own heart, and maybe feel this calling to reunite with the lumen aspects of who you also are, because we were not doing that separately. Everything was happening since the beginning of time in parallel. Okay, but where we are now, it's still difficult. So you can imagine how it is for a lumen being, and for me, this is my only and first lifetime here, and I've never ascended from Earth. We created these aspects everywhere else, but not on Earth yet. So this is new to me as well. And when I talk about ascension, a lot of people have a very rigid and fixed belief about what that is, but it's not. For instance, when I shared my ascension video, someone was blatantly disrupting my own flow and calling me out on my own truth, just sharing like that's not it. They were trying to impose their own beliefs and rigid systems of those beliefs upon me, and they were trying to stumble upon these notions of being here for years and years and performing miracles of longevity. I never know how to pronounce it. And just being masterful and staying here for being 200 years old, things like that. If that's your thing, that's your truth, whatever. I know how the darkness operates. It's always trying to hijack my own knowing, my own truth through these people who don't even have any understanding. They're not illumined beings. They don't know what I'm talking about. They're just trying to criticize other people and trying to come in between my source and, and me. There's no one else in between. It's just me and my source. And my story, my galactic origin might be completely different than yours. And when these people do that, they're not aware that they're actually channeling darkness. And they're trying to superimpose these beliefs. And they're not actually being friendly. They're not acting as companions. They're not acting as supportive people. And that person was trying to convince me that I'm talking about death, even when I explained over and over again that ascension is eternal life. Master, beloved Jesus spoke of the same thing, and people have these rigid beliefs thinking, yeah, but they didn't do that, but they should do that. Most people can't even manifest abundance in their own life. Most people don't even know what a selfless service is to all life. So these people should just and leave the rest of us live our truth and do what our illumined counterparts are guiding us to do, because we are those aspects, we are those beings. Okay, so one thing you have to know for sure is you have nothing to say about any other person's ascension and their journey, because that is their own, just like your journey is yours. Where I come from, everything is created from love. That love is a union of these Elohim beings who come together, and in their joint union, in their love making, they create aspects of themselves. And these aspects will be moved into those aspects of creation that need it the most, that need this love, that need to be injected with that love and through that immaculate design. That's what, for me, descension of these aspects is. And ascension only happens through that love. This is not in my own remembrance of that truth. Ascension is not about proof. Ascension is not about goals. It's not about overachieving and transcending something. It's simply about the act of that love that came into creation, created something that was most necessary from the highest aspects of divine will, and then pulling that aspect once again back home when its mission is fulfilled. And the only thing that is real is that once you're done somewhere, you simply move on and you go to the next stage, and it's all designed by the greatness of Divine Mother. No human has anything to say here. And people who do that, they're deeply, deeply rooted in ego. They're not in truth because they don't even know themselves. And this is what Jesus the Christ told us as well. He said people do not know themselves, so they're picking up these belief systems. And first, they have them for themselves, and then they're also trying to pull them onto everyone else. They're trying to project their reality, kind of like there's still control there. Because whenever you're trying to convince someone into something, that's control. And that's darkness. It's not of the light. And so let me continue with my story, right? What was happening through eons and eons of time on Earth is the soul aspects that kept on spinning here on Earth, they were more entrenched into distortion of this original pure love that was shared since the beginning of time. It was an impulse through which all of us were birthed in the name and the love of Christ. Christ is not one being, is the being of all, right? It's a pure immaculate love state through which all of us were created. Simply, our journeys were different as souls, our choices were different, but we're all still one being. And because of oneness, of that unity, we're still always kind of stuck together in a way. And we can't say, well, this is not mine because I did not create it. From the perspective of unity, even if another aspect created it, like let's say the Luciferian fall. Lucifera is a creation angel being who's decided to fall herself. Everyone became suddenly involved in that. We're all still living in this reality as a result of that creation of one choice, as above, so below, and we're all in it. But the reason and the way we heal that, I've often explained before, is we're healing it each through our own counterparts coming into union and healing of that Luciferian wound, of that fall, and the negation of the feminine principle of life. The feminine principle fell, and because of that, the masculine principle often still doesn't know how to trust the feminine. It craves the feminine. I know many men who crave the mother and to feel that love, but they don't. They just crave it. So that longing is of soul. Desire is an aspect that is earthly, and it was distorted, and it was hijacked, and it was tossed and turned around, and desire became the main motivational guide in our earth plane. This plane of existence. So when someone interacts with you and they haven't done the workings of the Christ within themselves yet, because first you have to awaken your inner Christ seed, but then you also have to embody it. There's two different levels. Jesus was born with being, the Christ, but he needed to embody it. It was the same with me. I was born as a Christ being, but I needed to walk a very long path to actually embody that principle in totality, right? And a lot of people don't understand this, that we're in different journeys, that we're different beings, that we have a whole different evolutionary history behind us. We just see another person and we automatically think that they're just like us. So we have a belief, if we have something, we need to project it onto them. And if we're not a being of truth, we won't see clearly, and that clarity will continue to elude us. And so let me get back to this notion of desire versus longing. Longing is of soul. And when your soul longs, it always longs for the higher qualities of life. Purity, love that is devoted, love that is free, love that allows you to be free in your expression of love, love that allows you to heal yourself in a way that's naturally evolving for you. It's not forced. You're not told how to heal. So when someone truly loves you, they will let you go. It doesn't mean they're abandoning you or leaving you behind. It means they're leaving you to your healing because they see who you are, where you are right now at this point. You know, so on our earthly journeys, we all often fell in love with different people. And when we fall in love with someone, we see a mirror, right? We see a mirror of that soul connection reflected back to us instantaneously. But then the ego kicks in, right? And we're shown also all the wounds, all the mishaps, everything that still isn't integrated fully within the lumen light. This is a journey. It's quite a road to travel, right? And so when I was shown this, I was shown that this love that became more of a desire keeps souls hooked, and it keeps them in these relationships and commitments that are more of a bondage than they're actually a true love and devotion. They're more of a commitment to something that you know, perhaps at a certain period in your life, these beings don't even know what anymore they're committing to. But again, this is where the tug war comes into play, right? So after I received this vision, a few days later and after this pulsar, I had a meditation, and basically it was very simple. I entered into what I call a visitation of home. It was very interesting. It actually started in a way that I saw myself being pulled. There was this tug war. Actually, I felt this tug war, how it feels like, because there was still, up until the last moment, it was for me just recently, it happened. I felt like still this pull, like something is still pulling me to earth, and I couldn't see what that is. And then I realized it's also other people and it's other souls who, from some aspect of them feels like they don't want me to leave. They want me to stay here, and I can't stay here. That's the thing. I have to keep on moving. And just recently in one of the meditations we've done with my spirit counterpart, Aurea, he said to me, we don't walk away. We never walk away like from someone or something. We have to see it as we're just simply moving forward. We're moving forward in our spiral. And that spiral of love, we need to be free. And that spiral is spinning. So when I came into contact with specific beings who were more motionless and they're always living the sameness in their life, they weren't moving forward and did not choose it, I always see myself as them being this fixed pillar, and I'm spiraling around them. And it works up until a specific point, and then it just gets blocked. It's not meant to be that way, right? It's how the feminine and masculine polarities are dancing with each other together. Should be feeding that creative flow from both aspects of polarity. However, because on earth this is not healed yet, the divine union on earth is mostly not, in its full glory and achievement, that's where the pains come in, right? This is where it gets painful. And I went and jumped into quite a few of those experiences. And I do that in the essence level. This is how I heal for the whole, for the collective. I enter, I explore, and then I try to pull that back into a more refined aspect of itself. I'm refining things as I plunge into them and I explore them. And sometimes I would have one person that would serve for me as that anchor that I need, that I will wrap my spiral around. And sometimes I just do it on my own. It really depends. But where we are right now on earth, the masculine energy is still not trusting the feminine. It wants, it yearns, it craves, but there's still a lot of projection for the feminine counterpart through desire. And this is something that still wasn't cleared, and it hasn't been fully illumined, because there's still this push and pull, right? It's like they're standing in between the old and the new, and the new is far too outreaching, and it's scary because of that. And the old is just, it no longer satisfies, but it's safe and it's fixed and it provides safety and security. But beings like myself, we live on the edge. We live dangerous lives. We need to always plunge into something new, as dangerous as it might sound, right? So when I went and experienced this visitation of home, the first thing I felt was this push and pull. The next thing I saw is, I said to that aspect, I said, I'm not leaving you. I'm simply moving forward, but not for myself. I'm doing this for the whole. I'm actually ascending for all of us. This is being done on the behalf of all of souls. This is for us, not against us. It's not about leaving any counterpart behind. It will never happen, because we're loyal to a fault. That's the thing here. This is why we're here now at this specific point in time. This is what a lot of people don't see and understand, because they're like this, right? And so I went, and I saw myself first, like the moment that energy released me, I kind of like, I was like uplifted, like on a hot air balloon. It was very rapid moving. And then I saw myself almost like landing on this cloud, and there was a guide that kind of was pushing me forward. And at a specific point, I saw myself walking as alone, and I was walking through these different gateways. I wasn't walking, I was actually like sliding, like gliding through it. And there was like rainbow archways around many of them. There was like many that I had to pass, and suddenly I saw like this corridor of light, and it like I had to funnel through it. Then there was these doorways, and I had to find the right door. And in finding that door was this letter inscription, the two opposing V's and A's, right? The Aurea, Auron, this divine union counterparts. And I opened that doorway, and I found myself in this room. And when I entered this room, it looked like this hall of something, victorious, glorious kingdom, kingship, I don't know, this hall. And it was amazing. But the moment I entered it, it was like I was flying again, and that wasn't yet the thing. And then I had to go even deeper and higher up until it's like eventually I started spinning super fast. And after that spin, I finally saw a hand reaching towards me, and then I grabbed it, and then I saw the being finally, and it was Auron. And he was just, I was like, I started crying like a baby, and it was just all of his glory, this golden white being just glowing, and he's like, okay, just come. And I came, and at first I felt still a little smaller, and I had to kneel before him, and then I stood up, and he said, well, now we're the same, now we're equal. So we kind of like matched up, and I became merged with this essence again. And that moment we went into this room, and it was like this instant creation. I was like, wow, what is this room? And because it was so simple, it was just like a normal room, lots of white and just one bed. And we sat on the bed and we kissed, but that wasn't even, it wasn't even what this was about. We simply greeted each other. And he said, well, as you know how it is home, like we can create instantaneously anything we want. This is us, right? This is home. This is Illumined realms. And I was simply like, oh yeah, that's right. It's so simple here. I forgot how simple everything is. How things are just so pure and clear. Even the room, it was like this modest room, space filled with love. And the moment we kissed and exchanged ourselves, we started talking about what's still left for us. And we're like, what are we going to do? It's like, it's how it is, with us. It's never about us. It's always about our creations and the love and others. And so we were talking about something, and at that moment I kind of went out a bit, and I just remember something, how he was speaking about those few who are still wondering, the wonders, that I like spinning. And I was like, yeah. And he gave me a number, how many. And after having that consultation, after a while I left and returned back. And this was very, very emotional for me, because for the last few weeks, I don't think I've ever cried in my life so much. I mean, I have cried a lot when I was releasing this pain and having these surges and needing to break through them with love, that love. But this last visitation felt very real, because I knew for a while now that it's coming soon, and I keep getting messages, they're all waiting. The Aureon is always saying, I'm waiting for you, and I know that everything here is wrapping up to its completion. I've seen and I've witnessed many things, and I was recently shown that all that I've experienced with others, how the other counterparts still live, was all for me to gather all of that, and I'll take all of that with me, and then we're going to create something new with that. We're going to probably create new levels of assistance. We're probably going to create, because it's all about equal give and take, the informational exchange. So I didn't just come and say, well, we're gonna, bring that and that opportunity for ascension to those few souls. But I see it now as much, much bigger. I see it also as gathering the earthly aspects and bringing them back home. This is what's constantly in play here. And since the moment of my almost death, that one winter ago, I was shown this, and he said to me, this is what's at stake. This is what needed to be done. So that's why you were created. And now, final part of this, I want to share with you what I asked for to receive through my simple journaling and writing. That was yesterday. And it came through so beautifully simplistic, and it was not a channeling, because it was not written through me as in spirit speaking through me. It was not impersonal, but it was a person. It was written from the first person self, my inner child self. Remember, when the illumined inner child, the inner child is illumined, that's when the final step of this journey is. Ascension is not about achieving longevity. Ascension is not about having some kind of masterful skills. And a lot of beings are diverting themselves, and I'm quite sure that there's many, many beings who are quite advanced in this universe, but they still they're not beings of this illumined love. And many of them also went to the dark side because they were not integrating love in their component of growth. So they were only focusing on light, more light. And remember, the transgression experience actually showed that to me. It unveiled to me some of the most dysfunctional, pathological patterns that these beings have created for themselves, and that these beings were also once part of the light family, and how they diverted, and how they went only into the pursuit of this electric design of life. So my body was full of this electricity because that's how they wanted to progress their own experimentations and exploitation of life actually through me, but it didn't work. Because there's so much love seated in me through Aurea and Aurea's union that they knew probably since the beginning, that since day one, that their love would win over anything. And this is the only guiding principle in my life now, is because I went through a lot of troubles and difficulties with people, and especially these breakthroughs that were, even if it was with people, it was always all energetic. It was always the workings of higher aspects and how they move through the lesser aspects here on earth. And the dark worked quite hard in my life to try to hijack my connections with these souls that are very precious to me, and I love them. And they, it's like they use that something you love and they turn it around and they twist it, so they send you these frequencies through that and they try to distort it. But I was asking recently if they can actually, if the inception can go as deep as you would actually have a false perception of someone being as a part of that group, right? And the illumined being said, no, because the darkness is not almighty. It's not that possible. It doesn't have the knowledge how to, work at the creation level. What they do is they distort and they hijack that which is of pure creation. So the mother first gives the gift. So if, let's say, you have a relationship and you feel something there and there's a bond and connection, that thing is real. It is a gift of the mother. And it is something that you've chosen, and it's equal-sided, and you're doing something with the other counterpart who is receiving something from you. But then the dark will come and will hijack these aspects and will try to move lots of dark energies through it. And this is when people are still not integrated in the knowledge of darkness. They're going to channel a lot of that. And that's the aspect that really hurt me in the past few months and years, because they use these connections and these people who actually still haven't mastered themselves through the knowing of dark and how it operates. So they unwillingly, through their naivety, channel lots of the darkness also through you, through their own attachment and desire, because the darkness cannot hijack anything of ours unless there's still an element of desire there. So the last thing I want to read you is this note to self, this final remembrance. It was like looking back in my life and having that synthesis. It's like a simple summary of the synthesis of my life, an acknowledgement of Aureon's and Aurea's love. Okay, thank you for being here still and listening. I didn't know that my life would be so difficult. I didn't know that I would have to withstand so much just to stay alive, keep on breathing, and complete my mission work. I didn't know that I would get interrupted so many times, stopped and pushed back, hijacked, abused, and tortured. I didn't know that no one would care but my own family of light. I didn't know that people are still so selfish, self-absorbed, and careless. No one remembered the true family of light anymore, and the core values that are a forgotten memory in this world, covered and denied access by so many. There are so few noble souls left here, and coming here to do the work was probably the hardest task that I can imagine. I don't know if anyone will ever read these words but me, and feel my pain and suffering, because they are still so numb to their own suffering, just trying to survive and get by on so very little. Never quite ready to wake up to true love, not knowing there's a whole new world out there waiting for them. I met so many souls, and just so few of them were humble enough to truly feel the gratitude for the gift of life exchanged in return. All they had to do was ask, and one gentle smile on their face was enough for me to respond and fly to them for assistance. However, I've also felt all of their weight and frustration, their agony and angst. It was often very hard to discern and tell the difference between mine and theirs, and what were simply just words for them and not more. I was learning about the expression of empathy in this world of duality, where true polarity is not yet understood. I had so much love to give and ended up receiving crumbs in return. Little pieces scattered here and there, but nothing great ever truly came out of it. Except my own inner child, this human being that I became on my quest of life. This precious being had to eventually and ultimately become the greatest love of my life. I had to learn that by loving this precious being that was created through the merging and a union of Aurea and Aurion's love, I would already be and have everything. Just being the offspring of their love to enjoy was enough, and it was my gift to give to this world, the knowing and remembrance of such love, which is so beautiful and full, so majestic and free, so passionate and full of life and life-giving. Just becoming the essence of this love, their love, was enough. It was the most precious seed of illumined life that they have created, and thus have become together through me. Their love could only fully unite on earth through me, as their precious love child. No task was ever so demanding, and yet quite so fulfilling as creating their illumined aspect on earth. They created me so that their almighty love could move into this part of creation and become the mystery and magic of love ready to be explored by me. As I was remembering myself and my home origin, I was remembering them and discovering the beauty of life essence that they are, and I was simply living my human experiences on earth and illuminating them. None of them was meaningless and not important in the greatness of their illumined plan. Every single one of them mattered. They all co-created this beautiful tapestry of life, and every single person that I met along the way was then also touched by this love. However, I've learned that people always come and go, wherever they are on their journey, but only the seed of this illumined love within me is forever. Only Aurea and Aurion are eternal. And I was born with that illumined seed, which only grew and magnified itself as I lived my life through their utter reverence and devotion. Along the way, I was often sidetracked because I had to see how the other counterparts still choose to live. That choice to stay in separation and ignorance was very painful for me to witness and experience, as I've also then taken it into myself in order to digest and integrate it within the whole in my womb. It wasn't my own, and still I chose to experience it within me in order to assist the liberation and unification process. It is how they created me, and through the love-making of their union, they put all of their own essences into me, which became my guiding qualities of the soul essence, illumined truth and the love of life, lived in purity and humble devotion to illumined union. The adoration of divine beauty of life became the inner beauty of my own being. And so, the divine beauty as adoration followed me my entire life. I've felt it in all my nature moments, as I was simply making love with the beauty of life and illumined design, the so-called immaculate template. At that juncture point of my life, this is now, where darkness finally fully met the light and they both began to dance and commingle with each other, I lost interest in all things external. That scared me at first, because although it was a gradual process, it was also a very intense one. This simply meant that the external no longer acted as an outside trigger, a catalyst, which would move my physical life experience and push me forwards and onwards. From this point on now, I began to fully internalize everything. The cycle of expansion that was created through union of Aurea Aurion returned to the core of itself, to that point in space and time where it all began. The desire to return home, to that immaculate state of pure illumination, was born here. All my human needs and desires begin to gradually dissipate, collapsing within one another while gently moving into the point of unification through the triangulation process. The divine trinity within me as the Father, Mother, and Child was finally ready to be completed, and thus birthing a new experience, a new level of form. Aurea, Aureon, Polona, Aurea. My inner human child finally stepped aside, now given the key of their experience back to them, so they could once more become the family that they are, saying, here is my life. This was my beloved experience of it. Take it now. Take it and use it for something even greater. Claim it as your own, as I was merely your beloved vessel. I am no longer angry and resentful for this. I know and understand now that it was ultimately all for me and because of me. And now back to me it shall return, as I'm getting ready to ascend as the illumined human beloved child. And so be it, and so it is. So when I first read it, I felt just this beautiful knowing of, that's it, that's my mission, and it's getting ready to be completed. When I read it the second time, I read it together with my mother, and we both cried like idiots. And now when I read it to you, it's sharing with all of you. And I still hope deep within myself that even though now people are not as aware as maybe I would hope them to be, but I hope that the seed of their love touched this world, because, even when you think about higher beings, we always say, well, the higher is always better than the lower. No. You have very, very advanced beings, but they don't have the quality of such profound love. For me, the ultimate, the divine parents, aspects of me, the highest 9D aspects, Aurea, Aureon, are basically the purest, most benevolent, loving, powerful force, fierce beings. And I'm so happy that I'm their child, that I was a creation of their offspring, their extension, their love. That their love created me, and that I could walk this love on this planet, that I could share with you throughout my journey, throughout the years of me speaking to all of you. But it wasn't until this point, as I've expressed here, when the light and dark fully met within me, which happened actually through this transgression, that the memory of home is now becoming the actualization and embodiment of home within me. And every day now I wake up, I want to get closer to this love. And Aurea, Aureon can become once again fully one, as they've completed this one aspect of their cycle, of their togetherness in this creation that was me. And it wasn't personal one. An element of it was, that's the intimate beauty that I experienced in this traveling, this journey, this road. And yet, they always told me, this creation angels, these aspects, they're always non-personal aspects. They live for life to be sprouted into something new because of them, through them. And I know for a fact that I don't have much time left, and I know many people would choose to argue, and a lot of people have been telling me different things as they're delayed, like not just, from a negative connotation point of view, but sometimes even people with positive reinforcement saying, but Earth has so much to offer, and it's beautiful to experience the physical life. And I have had such a beautiful life. There's many people who have not felt the beautiful feelings as I've had in the last 10 years. And I would wish for everyone to experience that. And if you feel that's for you, those are your words to yourself, but not to me. And, these are the things you just know within your heart. You just know there's something completing and you have a longing. My longing is already taking me to the next chapter of my life. It's a deep longing that's so unfulfilled, just like people long to have a life partner or to, learn new skills, want to do their soul art, want to finally communicate who they truly are to the world. All of this I've done. And there's nothing left for me to fulfill but the final plan, which is ascension. And I don't know, I have no idea how it will look like and when. But I feel my time is nearing, and it is coming, and it is dawning, and it's calling, and it's a deep longing. So I promise to myself that as long as I have time, and there's always devotion in my heart, as you know, and when I'm not as deeply entrenched in integrating very, very difficult things in this life so it can persevere and be victorious. Well, it's a we, right? Where I come from, there's always a we. It's all of us doing it together, Illumined Ones. And we can only do that with steadfast devotion, which sometimes take a toll on the physical body, but it is what it is. And I know that people who don't have the same journey cannot understand, and I would never ask anyone to. But please, stay humble in your silence. And don't think you know more than I do and than we do. Because you're actually doing a great disservice in dishonoring of the beings who know exactly what they're doing. And because of them, I also know exactly what I'm doing, because I'm a part of them. We're one. And everyone, in a way, for themselves, knows what they're doing. But we have to learn not to project what we believe about this life to others. Everyone has a unique story they've created. And just so happens that our story, the Illumined Team journey story, was a very broad one, and it took into account so many beings. We had to work with so many different contrasting energies, and I had to learn how people who are so focused on earth, I had to learn to love that as well. Like, I had to learn to love that they're not choosing the freedom. I did not understand it, just like they don't understand me and how I am. But I only, had this last desire in my life to love it, to love their choices, no matter what they are, but also to choose freely my own. And that's why our paths sometimes come together and sometimes they, come apart again. But that's the only reason. But we never actually separate. And as long as I'm life, which I will be and continue to, I'll be more and more full of life, I will work for the fulfillment of the whole in Illumined Union's plan. But I also know that after my ascension, I'll be able to do much more, because I'm still limited with my human body and physical mishaps, that human traits are still, capabilities that are limited. And I know some people would say, well, that's the point of ascension, to break through that. Yes, but it's not what many people think it is. And I know my truth, and I will continue to walk it every day, regardless of the opposition and temptations and swayings of others, because I'm no longer swaying with myself. And this is how I know that my inner child has finally been freed and illuminated. And it still had yearnings. Up until the last point, I felt these cravings, and I felt them, and they were kind of bugging me and leaving me frustrated. But I had to allow my inner child to come into its own completion, to just give it time and say, okay, you still have those desires, fine, live them out, express them. Up until the point where I really met home. And that's when something really shifted for me. And now I'm just going and moving forward. I'm going with this love that for me is Aurea, that is Aureon. And when I wake up with that love every day, no matter where and how and who it brings me to, every day just focus on this moment. That Spirit knows what it will bring me to yet illuminate until I'm still here. And then one day, my time will also come to leave. And I will stay until that point in this. I want to stay in that adoration of what this body has done for the whole. And I know what it has done. And it was a very, very tortured body in a way, but it was also a very loved body. And not by humans, but the way they love me. And in one of my recent, purgings, that child said to my beloved, Aurea, said, but no one ever loved me truly as, a human, well, except my mother. She was the purest love that I knew, but it was feminine to feminine. And he said, yeah, I know, but I do. And that's the only thing that matters. And knowing that love made me be very self-aware in what for me love is and what love is not. And I've kept my boundaries. And I needed just enough human experience to integrate both polarity counterparts, but not to get myself in a mess. I did not come here to be entangled in the human condition. No way. I did not come here to bind myself to that which still binds others to this realm. And so when you finally realize that and you set yourself free, you're giving this world a gift, and you're showing others, just through your example, how you can and you will ascend through that love. And as long as I have that love, and they hold me every day in that love, I know everything will happen exactly when, where, and how it has to and needs to, for all of us as one. So thank you for being on this journey with me, for journeying through home. And as always, with so much love in my heart, with wisdom and with power, and I will see you again as Spirit intends. Thank you.